They call it the safest plane you can buy, a luxury spaceship for rich dreamers wrapped in white fiberglass and Silicon Valley swagger. But behind every promise of effortless flight is a bill that will make your jaw drop, insurance quotes that could buy you a house, and a silent 10-year clock ticking down to a mandatory maintenance shock that has derailed more than one new pilot's ambitions. They told you this was the future of aviation. Nobody warned you about the price of being grounded. Just how much will the Cirrus SR22 really cost you before you ever leave the runway? Walk onto any ramp and the Cirrus SR22 stands out like a new Tesla in a parking lot full of pickup trucks. The paint is flawless, the lines are aerodynamic, and the doors close with the click of a German luxury car. This is not a recycled Cessna or a hand-me-down Piper. It is the airplane that says you have arrived, at least until the first invoice hits your inbox. A brand new SR22 with all the bells and whistles will set you back $900,000. That is before you add options, before you even think about the first tank of avgas. The used market is not exactly a bargain bin either. A 2001 model, 2 decades old, still commands over $300,000. For that kind of money, you could buy a new house in most of the country, or 3 well-equipped Cessna 182s and have change left for fuel. But the SR22 is not selling practicality. It is selling the dream. The cockpit looks like it was designed in Cupertino, not Wichita. Dual glass displays, synthetic vision, leather seats stitched tighter than a sports car. The sales pitch is simple. This is safety and speed, wrapped in a status symbol. Every detail is engineered to make you feel like you are stepping into the future, not just renting a piece of the past. Owners talk about flying their families cross-country, skipping TSA lines, landing in small towns for breakfast. It is the Silicon Valley promise: freedom, innovation, control. And for a certain kind of buyer, the sticker shock is part of the thrill. The SR22 is not just an airplane, it is a declaration. But that declaration comes with a contract, and the fine print is written in dollars. Hidden beneath the gloss and stitched leather, the Cirrus is a machine that asks for respect and for signatures on a lot of paperwork. The engineering is real. It is not just for show. That red handle above your head is not a marketing gimmick. It is the gateway to the Cirrus airframe parachute system called CAPS. CAPS is a rocket-fired, solid-fuel rocket parachute that can lower the entire plane to the ground when things go sideways. Pull it, and a solid-fuel rocket blasts out of the baggage compartment, dragging a 65-foot canopy into the slipstream. The whole airframe rides down, pilot and passengers included. More than 200 people have walked away from accidents because of that system. It is the kind of feature that makes pilots talk about safety in a new way. But there is a catch. CAPS is not a one-time insurance policy you buy and forget. It is a living, breathing system that comes with obligations you cannot ignore and you definitely cannot cheap out on. Every 10 years, by law, the parachute and its rocket must be pulled out, inspected, repacked, and recertified by a Cirrus authorized shop. Skip the cycle and your plane is grounded. Ignore the deadline and you are not just risking your safety, you are breaking federal regulations. No one tells you about the calendar in the logbook counting down to the next repack. The glass cockpit is another marvel. Dual screens, synthetic vision, a moving map that tracks every blip of weather and traffic. It promises less stress, but it demands attention. For pilots used to steam gauges, it is like trading a pickup truck for a Tesla Model S, fast and smart, but quick to punish mistakes. There is a learning curve, and the insurance companies know it. Every new system, every safety breakthrough comes with its own set of rules, service intervals, and compliance checklists. The SR22 is not just a plane, it is a contract with the future, and the fine print is always waiting. The more advanced the safety, the more you owe it. That red handle might save your life, but it is also the start of a maintenance cycle you cannot escape. Insurance is where the dream starts to unravel. For a new Cirrus SR22 owner with less than 250 hours total time, the numbers are not just high, they are punishing. Brokers quote annual premiums of $30,000 to $40,000. Not a typo. That is the cost of a new car every year just to keep the airplane legal. On owner forums, the stories pile up. A private pilot with 50 hours in type received a $37,000 quote. Another, fresh out of training, was told outright. No coverage unless they log another 100 hours with a Cirrus instructor. The underwriters do not mince words. One underwriter said they see too many claims from low-time pilots in high-performance glass cockpit planes. It is not the airplane, it is the pilot's experience. The logic is cold. The SR22 is fast, slippery, and packed with technology. But speed and safety systems do not erase risk. They shift it. Insurance companies look at the accident data and see a pattern. Pilots new to the Cirrus, dazzled by the glass screens and the red handle, make expensive mistakes. Hard landings, gear-up approaches, automation confusion. Every time a claim gets paid, the next buyer pays for it. For high-time pilots, the quotes drop. Sometimes they fall to $4,000 to $5,000 a year. But the penalty for inexperience is steep, and it is written in black ink on the policy. Some owners try to game the system, logging hours in an SR20 or hiring ferry pilots to build time. Others just walk away, grounded by a number that makes no sense on any spreadsheet. The plane may be safe, but the math is brutal. $30,000 a year. $40,000 in some zip codes. That is the real entry fee for safety and status. And for many, it is the first sign that the Cirrus is not just a machine. It is a financial ecosystem with rules you cannot bend. The insurance companies do not just hand you a bill and walk away. They hand you a checklist, one that can ground you before you ever leave the ramp. For most new SR22 owners, the first surprise is not the premium, it is the fine print. Every carrier has its own set of hoops. Some demand proof of transition training with a Cirrus Standardized Instructor Pilot, CSIP. That is not a weekend course, it is a series of dual flights, logged and signed off, just to convince the underwriter you know which buttons to push and which ones to leave alone. Skip this step, and your policy is void. Even if you have the hours, some carriers insist on a fresh CSIP sign-off every year. The logic is simple. The more complex the cockpit, the higher the training bar. And the SR22 is as complex as anything in its class. Shopping for insurance is not a one-and-done deal either. Owners bounce between brokers, chasing a quote that will not ground them. Some are told to build hours in the less powerful SR20 just to get a foot in the door. Others get caught in a loop. One carrier says yes, but only with a $40,000 premium and a 30-hour transition. Another says no coverage at all until you log another 100 hours in type. The process drags on for weeks, sometimes months, with the airplane sitting idle. Each carrier asks for different documents, different training logs, different endorsements. Miss a single requirement and your policy is suspended. The paperwork becomes its own form of turbulence. Even after you clear the training hurdle, the restrictions do not end. Some policies limit solo flights. Others cap night or instrument flight rules operations until you hit new milestones. One missed step, one expired sign-off, and you are back to square one, grounded, waiting for the next round of approvals. The SR22 may have a parachute, but the real safety net is a stack of signed documents. For every hour you spend in the air, you will spend another chasing signatures, collecting endorsements, and hoping the next underwriter does not move the goalposts. The dream of freedom comes with a leash, and it is made of fine print. Every 10 years, the Cirrus SR22 faces a mandatory ritual no owner can dodge. The Cirrus Airframe Parachute System, CAPS, demands a full teardown. This is not a quick look and a signature. It is a factory-level operation. The entire CAPS unit comes out of the airframe. The parachute itself is unpacked, re-inspected, and either repacked or replaced. The rocket motor that sits dormant for a decade is swapped out for a new one. Even the harnesses and fittings get a forensic check for wear, corrosion, or chafing. If anything looks suspect, it is replaced, no questions asked. The process is not just about parts. Labor racks up fast. Early generation SR22s can soak up 30 hours or more on the shop floor, especially if access panels need modification. Later models are easier, but you are still looking at specialized technicians working with pyrotechnics and composite structures. There is no shortcut, no do-it-yourself option. Cirrus controls the list of authorized shops, and there are not many. If your local shop is not on the list, you are flying, or more likely trucking, your plane across state lines. That is if the shop even has an opening. Backlogs stretch for months during peak cycles. Then comes the rocket. Classified as hazardous material, it cannot just go in a FedEx box. Shipping requires special carriers, hazmat paperwork, and regulatory oversight from the Department of Transportation. The old rocket, now considered explosive waste, faces its own disposal fees. Every step adds time and cost, all logged in the maintenance records. The final tally. Owners report invoices in the $20,000 to $30,000 range, with the airplane grounded for 4 to 8 weeks. That is not just a bill, it is a forced vacation from flying. Miss the deadline and the plane is legally unairworthy. No ferry permits, no insurance, no exceptions. The red handle gives you peace of mind in the air, but on the ground, it is a clock you cannot stop. The cycle repeats every decade, no matter how little you fly or how careful you are. Safety in this case is written in both regulations and red ink. Fiberglass looks sleek in the sales brochure, but in the real world, composites are unforgiving. A careless tug with a tow bar or a hanger rash incident can mean a trip to a Cirrus authorized shop, not the corner A and P. Unlike the old aluminum birds, you cannot just hammer out a dent and slap on a patch. Composite repairs demand a forensic approach. Teardown, inspection, and a controlled cure can drag on for weeks. Owners talk about a 4-week grounding for a cracked fairing. 8 weeks if the damage runs deeper. Every day the plane sits, the meter keeps running. Shops are scarce, and the best ones have waiting lists. You are not just competing with other Cirrus owners, you are fighting for a spot with insurance companies and fleet operators. The bills are legendary. One owner opened an invoice for a routine inspection and found a $25,000 charge, no engine overhaul, just composite work and consumables. Another watched a minor bird strike escalate into a $50,000 repair, thanks to hidden delamination and the need for specialized labor. These are not rare horror stories. They are part of the SR22's operating reality. Even a flawless annual can balloon to 5 figures if a technician spots something in the fiberglass. The structure is strong, but it hides its wounds. If you do not catch a crack early, the repair bill only grows. Insurance underwriters know this. They factor composite risk into every policy, raising premiums or demanding higher deductibles for any history of repairs. Try to sell a plane with a fresh composite patch, and buyers will ask for discounts, sometimes 10 or 20% off the market value. Airframe shops may quote 4 to 8 weeks for a major repair, but the real wait is for a slot on the calendar. The SR22 is a marvel of engineering, but its beauty comes with a price. Once the shop doors close and the invoice lands, the dream of effortless flight turns into a lesson in patience and a masterclass in writing checks. Try listing a Cirrus SR22 for sale, and the market answers with silence. Brokers scan the logs. They see a caps repack coming due or a fresh composite repair. The price takes a hit, 10%, sometimes 20% below what the book says it is worth. That is not a rounding error. On a $400,000 used SR22, it is $40,000 to $80,000 gone, evaporated before you even field a phone call. The pool of buyers shrinks fast. Most are wary of a plane with a ticking 10-year bill or a history of major shop time. Some walk away the moment they hear caps due in 18 months. Aviation brokers see it every week. One broker says, "These are not liquid assets. If you need to sell quickly, be ready to discount or wait months." Listings stack up with price cuts, especially for airframes with looming maintenance. Former owners burned by the cycle sum it up in a single line. It is easy to buy a Cirrus. It is hard to get out. The resale reality turns the SR22 from a status symbol into a financial trap, especially for those who did not budget for the iceberg below the waterline. Start with the logbooks. If there is a gap, a missing page, or a CAP's repack date that is less than 2 years away, walk away or demand a heavy discount. Next, check for composite repairs. Any Form 337 in the file means weeks on the ground and a resale haircut. Do not trust a glossy paint job. Ask for photos of every panel off and every repair invoice. Then call for an insurance quote before you sign anything, not after. Tell the broker your hours, your ratings, your real experience. If they cannot give you a number in writing, you are not insurable. Add up the avionics costs. Subscriptions and database updates run $1,000 a year, even if you never leave the pattern. Ask the shop for a written quote on the next CAP cycle. If you are buying a used SR22, that bill is coming for you, not the last owner. Get a shop to scope the airframe for hidden delamination or hangar rash. Do not skip it. If the seller hesitates, there is a reason. If you are not flying at least 100 hours a year, consider a partnership or a rental. The SR22 punishes low utilization. The smart money does not buy the dream. It rents the reality and lets someone else hold the bag when the red handle clock runs out. Right now, hundreds of SR22s sit grounded, not for lack of skill, but for lack of cash. As insurance rates and mandatory CAPS costs keep rising, the promise of accessible safety clashes with financial reality. In aviation, protection always carries a price. The question is, who is willing and able to pay it? Drop your perspective below.